Hey guys, Mr. DeFlocus here. Today is Monday, April 20th, and we will be starting lesson 7.9 today. So before we begin, make sure you have these things. If you don't have them after I'm done saying what they are, pause the video and go grab them. First and foremost, you're going to need lesson 7.9 notes. That's going to be really important for today because there's two new words that we're going to talk about, and you're going to need to know what they are. You're, of course, going to need your book, because we are going to be doing some problems in our book, your slate or notebook, and your dry erase and or pencil. Okay? So before we dive into our book today, I want to do a quick review on something we learned last week that was really important when adding mixed numbers. So I'm going to do a quick problem. This isn't today's lesson. This is something we learned last week. But in order to be successful with today's lesson, you need to remember this from last week. All right, so I'm going to do a quick problem. So we'll do 3 2/3 plus 1 1/3. All right, now we learned last week when we're adding mixed numbers, I'm always going to add my fractions first. Also making sure that our denominator is the same. It is the same. If it wasn't, then we would have to do something else. We haven't learned that yet. All right, but they are the same. So now I can just add my numerators, which are 1 and 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. My denominator is going to stay 3. So my fraction is 3/3, which equals 1 whole. Now we'll get back to that in a minute. I'm going to add my wholes. 3 plus 1 is 4. So my answer is 4 3/3. But when I write my sum to a mixed number, I never want to leave a fraction that looks like this, because this fraction actually equals 1 whole. It's actually supposed to be over here in the whole number column. So really think of this as you're adding 4 plus 1, or 4 plus 1 whole. 4 wholes plus 1 whole. So instead of writing 4 3/3, I'm going to just do 4 plus 1. So my answer for this whole thing, the sum, is 5. That is going to be so important for you guys to know for this lesson, that when you see a fraction in your sum that has the numerator and denominator as the same, we have to make sure that we add 1 to that other whole number. Okay? The whole lesson today is around that. All right? So make sure that you get that in your head. Okay. Now, let's look at our notes. So right here, the commutative property. Let's read what it says. Commutative property is when adding or multiplying, doesn't say that, but either one, when adding or multiplying, the order of the addends or factors can change, but the answer or sum will stay the same. All right, so let's talk about what that means. Not doing fractions yet. Watch this. We can do it with whole numbers. Make it a little easier on ourselves. 3 plus 2. Numbers that we add, guys, these are called addends. All right, it's a weird word, I know, addends. 3 plus 2 is 5. That's my sum. These are my addends. Okay? Now, the commutative property says I can change the order of my addends, and my sum will still be the same. So watch what I do. I'm going to change the order. 2 plus 3, and my sum is still going to equal 5. Okay? That's all the commutative property says. This is true also for multiplication. Think of 2 times 3 as 6. And if you change the order of the factors, 3 times 2 still equals 6. All right? So that's all the commutative property is. You're just changing the order. Okay? So let's look at an example using mixed numbers here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my slate around, and we're going to do, instead of 2 mixed numbers today, we're actually going to be adding 3 mixed numbers. Okay? So let's do 5 3/6 plus, and this is actually number 4 in your book on page 436, plus 5 5/6 plus, oh my gosh, 3, it's weird, 4 3/6. Okay, now in your book there's actual things that look like this, and they're hugging the numbers. Okay, let me back up so you can see. These are called parentheses, all right? Now, parentheses always tell us to do that first, but there's another property that we'll get to in a minute that says we can move those parentheses, but anytime we see parentheses, you can move them. You're telling the person that you're doing that first. All right, so right now they're telling us to do this first. So if I was adding my fractions, 5, 6 plus 3, 6, well, that's going to be 8, 6, and that's an improper fraction, which we did learn how to change. But remember, we want to try to find the easiest way. So what I'm going to do right now is in my head, I'm looking at all of my fractions, which are here, 3, 6, here, 5, 6, and here, 3, 6. And what I'm asking myself is, can I get any two fractions from here and put them together to get one whole? That's going to make our lives a lot easier. So I do see 2. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to change the order, okay? So I know that 3, 6 and 3, 6 would equal 6, 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them next to each other. I'm changing the order, so I'm using the commutative property. So I'm going to rewrite 5 and 3, 6. That's still going to be my first one. I'm just rewriting this problem, guys. Don't get confused. I'm just rewriting. All right? But now instead of 5 and 5, 6, I'm going to write this one next. Plus 4 and 3, 6. Now the reason why I'm writing that first is because, remember, I'm looking for my fractions that are going to equal one whole. And then I definitely want to rewrite also the other fraction, 5 and 5, 6. Now, remember I told you the parentheses, they tell the person what you're adding first. So, what I'm going to do right now is I still need to include my parentheses. What am I going to add first? Well, I want my two fractions when I add them together to equal one whole. The only two fractions here that when I add together are going to equal one whole are 3, 6 plus 3, 6. So I'm going to put my parentheses around those two mixed numbers. They're hanging out. These guys are best buds. She's on the outside looking in. Okay? The reason, again, why these two are together is because now I'm going to add these two fractions in my head. So what's 3, 6 plus 3, 6? 6, 6. What's 5 plus 4? 9. 9 and 6, 6. Now, remember, we said earlier, all I have to do now, I have to add 1 to my whole, because 6, 6 equals 1 whole. So it's 9 plus 1. 10. Okay, we are almost done. The very last thing, I'm not going to forget about this mixed number. Remember, she's on the outside, but I'm going to bring her in, and I'm going to add her to that whole number. So it's 10 plus 5 and 5, 6. So there's only one fraction here. So I'm just going to add my wholes. 10 plus 5 is 15. And then just bring your 5, 6. So your answer is 15 and 5, 6. Okay? So notice, it looks like a lot of work. This is the original problem. We did two things. We changed the order of these two, and then we put parentheses. Okay? And then we just added. So that's all you're doing. The other thing, the other property, is called the associative property. It's at the bottom of your notes, right here. The associative property says, when adding, you can change the grouping of the addends, the grouping of the numbers, in parentheses, and the answer will stay the same. So we did that. We actually did both the commutative property when we changed the order, and we also used the associative property when we changed the parentheses, or what we were adding first. So we use both properties, both the commutative and both the associative. Associative property is only when you're moving parentheses. A lot of people get these two properties confused. Commutative is when you're changing the order. So think commutative starts with a C, changing the order starts with a C. Okay? Associative is the parentheses. They're moving. The parentheses are moving around other numbers. Okay, so they were around these top two. We move them to these other two. All right, so go watch the second video now, because now we're going to do the word problem on page 435 in your math book.